Turn to China. Chinese President Xi Jinping has called for the development of works on religious affairs within the Chinese context. He also said it's important to respect the religious beliefs and support the work of groups in the sector. Wang Haiyang has more details.
President Xi Jinping has stressed upholding the principle of developing religions in the Chinese context and providing active guidance for the adaptation of religions to a socialist society. The president was addressing a two-day national conference on religious affairs, which concluded on Saturday in Beijing. Xi says China should fully, accurately, and comprehensively implement the party's policy on freedom of religious belief, respect its citizens' religious beliefs, manage religious affairs in accordance with laws, uphold the principle of independence and self-management, and provide active guidance to religions so that they can adapt themselves to the socialist society. Xi said the country's religions should be developed in the Chinese context. He called for efforts to guide and support faiths to be led by the core socialist values. This means fully implementing the party's theory on religious affairs in the new era, the basic policy on religious affairs, and the policy on the freedom of religious belief. Since the National Party Congress in 2012, the CPC Central Committee has put forward a number of new concepts and measures on religious work. The president said since then, progress has been made and religions in China has increasingly been Chinese in orientation. He called for guiding the religious circle to improve their self-education, self-management, and self-discipline. Wang Haiyang, CGTN.
Respecting and protecting freedom of religious belief is a basic policy in China. Such freedom is protected by China's constitution and many laws. A white paper issued in 2018 says the major religions practiced in China are Buddhism, Taoism, Islam, Catholicism, and Protestantism. With about 200 million believers and over 380,000 clerical personnel. All normal religious activities are protected by law and conducted in an orderly manner. At present, there are over 140,000 places of worship registered for religious activities around the country, including temples, mosques, and churches. A significant amount of religious texts and literature are published by multiple entities in various forms. Now, for more insights into this topic, let's talk to Professor Victor Gao from Suzhou University and our current affairs commentator, Mr. Einar Tangen. Thank you very much for joining us. So let me start with you, Victor. I believe you've read President Xi Jinping's keynote speech at this work conference on religious affairs. So one key feature of his guidelines for the work to follow is focusing on the new era. So what could be the new features of this new era for religious work?
Well, first of all, I think the Chinese people have strong spirituality as people in many other parts of the world. And the Chinese constitution fully protects people's rights of religious beliefs of all kinds. And I think President Xi Jinping, in his important work, writing, outlined the imperative of protecting religious freedom in the new era. And I would say there are several features. One is that the Chinese religions of different kinds, be it Buddhism, Islam, Christianity of all kinds, for example, they are all independent. They are not subject to influences from abroad. Secondly, they are supposed to be patriotic. That is, they need to pledge allegiance to country as the sovereign, which is very important. And as we can see in many other countries, there is also such a requirement for religion to prevail in those countries. Now, thirdly, everyone in China has his or her own right of picking and choose whichever religious belief they want to believe in. And there is no coercion to force anyone to abandon his or her own belief or to impose any religious belief onto anyone else. So I think religion should be very much of a personal affair or family affair rather than, for example, being forced upon different groups of people in China. And I would say President Xi Jinping's emphasis that religion in China should also live up to the changing circumstances of time is also very important, because we are living in a fast-changing world in China as well as in the world, and religious beliefs should also keep up pace with these very rapid changes in society as a whole, rather than become a hindrance to economic and social transformation of the country and of the world.
What's your take on this, Mr. Tangen?
Well, I agree. I mean, what China is doing, it's the same with democracy, the internet. These are all powerful parts of society. Xi has acknowledged the importance of religion in how it's going to operate. Now, religion, as we have seen throughout the world, throughout history, can be a dual-edged sword. The teachings of religions are generally terrific. However, those who try to bend them to their own agendas are not. So what you're seeing here is the Chinese government is taking, the same way it's taking a whole of democracy approach to things. They're adapting these things so that people have the ability to choose religions that they have, but they can't then take them and start proselytizing, saying that others should live the way they want them to. It'll just be a question they can live how they wish within their church and within their homes.
Mr. Gao, just as you mentioned, one emphasis from President Xi Jinping is that works on religious affairs in China must be carried out within the Chinese context. Now, help our global audience understand what does the Chinese context mean?
Well, as I mentioned before, religions in China of different faiths, for example, they should be conducted purely within the Chinese context, meaning they should not be affiliated with an international organization, for example, or be subject to the rule of the overseas headquarters or branches. They should be separately incorporated in China, they should be locally incorporated, and they should not be subject to foreign influences. Now, if we look at other countries, there are very similar traditions or practices, and there are similar concerns about religious influences from, let's say, certain larger international groups into one particular country or another. This is very, very important. Secondly, I think the Chinese context also means that in China, we have a civilization of 5,000 years, and over this millenniums, there are different faiths, different practices, different schools of thought. Everyone needs to be respected, and no religion should force its way to replace everything else in the Chinese civilization or in the Chinese culture. And I think your God for you, my God for me, should be the rule of the game going forward. And I think there is another very important aspect to it. That is, you should also respect people's right of not believing in any particular religious faith. So it means that everyone should respect everyone else in terms of the religious belief, and no one should weaponize religion to force onto others what you believe as your religious faith. And everything needs to be conducted within the Chinese context. And as President Xi Jinping rightly pointed it out, it should be conducted under socialism context. That is, we need to abide by the laws and the rules in China as a country, which is ruled by the Communist Party of China. And there is a constitution. Everyone needs to respect the constitution as the supreme form of law, for example. And no one should elevate religion as a transcendent force above everything else in China.
Mr. Tangen, I believe you are no stranger to the Western narrative talking about so-called religious suppression in some areas in China, for example, Tibet and Xinjiang, and these narratives are usually going against the facts on the ground. What do you think is the Western agenda here?
Well, it's, we live in a kind of post-hypocritical world where often countries accuse others of doing the things that they have done themselves. I mean, there's no secret about the U.S. wars in Afghanistan, which were largely pitting sects against each other. I mean, it goes on for a long time, the ban of Muslims under Donald Trump, etc. So at this juncture, I think it's really, China has decided on a host of issues that it is simply going to construct the society that it believes will deliver the results for its people. It's not trying to please foreign influences, whether they be churches or otherwise. I will say that this will be very hard for many people in the West to swallow because they believe that religion is a paramount belief. In China, it is just one of many beliefs. And this is something that hopefully people will get their head around.
Thank you very much. Current Affairs commentator Mr. Einar Tangen and Professor Victor Gao there.